Hi, welcome back to the shed for episode 13 of the Jurgs cup build, and in this episode we're going to be making some pretty major steps forward and making this thing look an awful lot more like a guitar, even to the point where it will make sound. Last time we got some pretty serious work done on the neck. We got the headstock thinned down, we fitted the tuners, got all that done, and we also put the frets in. So the neck is kind of most of the way along. We obviously still need to carve it, but that's not a massive issue and won't really take too long. But the bit I want to do next is to actually get this neck finally married up with the body, so that we can do some calculations and get the bridge set in place. And to do that, we need to obviously bolt this in position, which isn't too much of a big issue, fairly straightforward. And to make it even more straightforward, I've made myself a little jig that fits nice and snugly into that neck pocket, lines up on the centre lines. Just going to put a scrap of wood underneath there, and I'm literally just going to go through with a 4mm drill bit. And the beauty of this jig is it's fairly thick, so it will keep my drill bit nice and square. We can then get this in position, get a clamp onto it, clamp it where we need it, making sure that all the centre lines are nicely lined up. I can then mark through from the back with a transfer punch where my neck needs to be drilled. We can get that to the drill press, get it properly drilled out, and then we can get it screwed in position for the first time. So I've just got a nice tight fitting transfer punch there. Which will put a mark into the neck, ready for drilling. I prefer to do it this way than to just drill through. I just feel a bit more in control. And there you might be able to see the 4 marks exactly where we need them. Now you sometimes see people have problems with bolt-on necks, developing cracks running along where the screws are. Now, you can't guarantee that isn't going to happen, but I think the biggest culprit of that is having the hole that you drill into the neck too small, and when you force these quite chunky screws in, it just puts too much lateral pressure on, which can crack the wood. So it's important to measure these accurately and use an appropriate size drill bit. So these have got an outside diameter of just over 4mm. And the actual shank of the screw between the threads is kind of measuring at 3mm. So I'm going to go somewhere in the middle of those two dimensions and use a 3.5mm drill bit. But before I do it on the neck, I'm just going to do a test run on a scrap of maple, and just to make sure that 3.5mm actually leaves enough material for the screw to bite. And it is. That's absolutely spot on. So I can get this over to the drill press now and just drill out those 4 holes. And with those drilled out, we can now just get this attached for the first time. So as always, just get a bit of wax into these threads. And this is the worst screwdriver in the world for this job, but unfortunately I'm working on another project over at my mum's at the moment and all my screwdrivers are over there, so it'll have to do for the time being. And there we have it, put together as a guitar shaped object for the first time, and I'm surprised how light that feels. I know it hasn't got any hardware on it, but that is very light considering the size of it. So yes, with the neck finally attached, we can actually start to get this bridge set out, and this needs to go at 30 inches from the nut line. And just mark out 30 inches on there, protractor, and just square a line across. But we obviously need to locate this bridge now as accurately as we can, and also make sure that the strings fall where we want them to along the neck. So to do that, I'm going to have to put the tuners back in, and we need to put this at least in position. I don't know if I want to fasten it down yet because there is a little bit of lateral movement on there. So what I might do is just see if I can clamp that in position, maybe just enough to get the two E strings onto it so we can do the setting up work. So I'll get those two bits sorted out off camera, we'll get the two E strings on and we'll see how we do. Okay, so there's the two strings on, and I've just had a check with this just by kind of putting the strings roughly in the slots, and it all seems to be working out as we want it to. So I'm going to go ahead and fit this bridge, and to do that I need to know the distance between these 2 points here very accurately. And to do that, quite straightforward, I'll measure that, that's 80 mil. And that is 6 millimeter. So I need to subtract the width of one of those from the 80 mil, which gives me 74 mil. Divide that by 237. So I'll set my dividers up to 37 mil. And that should give me the distance that I need to drill my holes from the centre line. But I'm not going to risk it right off the ball like that. So I've got a little piece of test material that we can use. So I need to get that to the drill press, and it's a 9 mil hole that I need for these little buckets to go into. Let's see how we've done. And that's spot on. So with that established, we can strip this back down again, get these holes marked in the appropriate places, and then get it to the drill press, get it drilled. Okay, and now the moment of truth. and that all fits absolutely lovely. So I'm going to put this back together off camera again and we'll see how this all worked out. Okay, and there we are. Actually makes sound and it all sits pretty much where I'd like it to. So the next step in this is not to get everything fastened into position as you think it might be. It's actually to get this pickguard fitting again, because it has to sit over the bridge. Because obviously if it was on top of the pickguard you wouldn't have the up and down adjustment that you would like to get out of the bridge. So to do that, obviously it's in a different position than we thought it was going to be. So I need to do a bit of marking up, and what I'm going to do is I can mark the body. Line it up where it needs to be. So I can now square these lines across and I should be able to mark out where that cutout goes from there. So that's where I want my bridge cut out to begin and end. But of course we want a radius on the end of there, so I'm going to find a suitably sized force-and-a-bit so that we can drill that out. So 3/4 inch force-and-a-bit does the job for me. And I've just marked that out. I've come a little way past those marks I put in, just the middle, so just to give myself a bit of clearance. I'll drill this out off camera and then we can get to cutting the rest of it out. And with that set up, literally just going to run the router through there just to clear out that waste against this straight edge, flip it over and do the other one. Okay, and there we have the pickguard template cut for the bridge. That all looks lovely, not a problem with that whatsoever. The problem I've got is these strings are obviously too big for these saddles. They just keep popping out of the slot, so I might have to kind of amend those slots a little bit and make them a little bit beefier, but that is for another time. So next up we'll get this template whipped off again and we will get the actual pickguard cut. And I have some pickguard material here, which is actually quite a nice looking piece of tortoiseshell material. Obviously not real tortoiseshell, and it's just big enough if I put that on at a little bit of an angle. I always knew that this was going to be tight. It is quite a big pickguard, but we have got there. So, as is normally the case, I'm actually going to fasten this on top of the template, because once I've cut it out and routed it to shape, I will then go around it and put a chamfer on where it's needed. And looking at this, it's needed on most of it. It's not needed around the neck pocket bit. and it's not needed around here. And I think I'm not going to put it on this back edge either. I'll just leave that square for the time being. I'll see what it looks like. As normal, super glue and masking tape, dosh that on, get it onto the bandsaw, trim the bulk of it off first, drill a few holes for these perforations, and get the router on it. Now there was a really horrible moment there where I was convinced I've made a left-handed pickguard. Don't know why, it just didn't look right. And my mind immediately went to, how soon can I get another sheet of material? Will that put me in danger with the deadline? So a little bit of a panic there, but of course I shouldn't have worried. I have got it the right way around. It does need a little bit of cleaning up around the edges, a little bit of smoothing off, but all in all, very happy with that. And I think we deserve a bit of a mock-up, don't you think? And I think that looks really nice. I like the way that the P90s look on this. It's a little bit of a departure from what it should look like, but I think that really does work. And just for bonus points, I've put the knobs and the switch in place, and I think that all looks really nice. Very happy with the way that that's gone. So next up, we need to take it all to bits again. We need to get the neck carved, and we need to start to do some finishing work on the rest of the body. But that's all going to be for the next episode. I'm going to leave this one here. So as always, don't forget to hit that like button if you've enjoyed this. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.